Have you ever sat at the dinner table, surrounded by your children or grandchildren, and felt like keeping your thoughts to yourself? Not because you're hiding anything, but because you've learned, maybe the hard way, that peace often lives in silence. After 60-something shifts, you stop chasing approval. You stop explaining yourself. You've been through enough to know that not every thought needs to be shared. And that's not being secretive. It's being wise. Because what you guard, you protect. And in your golden years, the most precious thing to protect is your peace. Now, I know it's tempting. When the kids ask questions, when the family is close, when emotions run high, it's natural to want to open up, to be honest, to let it all out. But not everything that's true is helpful. Not everything that's real needs to be spoken aloud. Today, we're going to have a real talk, just you and me, about the 5 secrets you should never share with your family in old age. Not because you're hiding something bad, but because you've earned the right to peace, privacy, and dignity. Let's start where most of the trouble begins: money. You see, after 60, your finances take on a whole new meaning. They're no longer just numbers in a bank account. That money is your history. It's the story of decades, of nights you stayed late at work, of vacations you skipped, of dreams you put on hold just to provide. Every dollar carries a piece of your life. And yet, for some reason, once people hit retirement, they feel pressured to share everything with their family. How much they have, what they plan to do with it, who's getting what. But once that door is open, you can't close it again. Maybe your son starts assuming you'll help with his mortgage. Maybe your daughter casually brings up her kid's college tuition. Maybe one grandchild gets a gift, and suddenly another feels left out. And just like that, your peaceful home becomes a quiet stage of expectations and comparisons. And no, this doesn't always happen because people are greedy. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. But unspoken entitlement can be just as heavy as outright demands. You might think you're being generous by being transparent, but in reality, you could be setting yourself up for pressure, resentment, or worse, losing control of your own freedom. Here's the truth. Your financial life belongs to you. Yes, maybe you have a lawyer or someone you trust who needs to know the basics for legal reasons. That's smart. But beyond that, you don't owe anyone a full spreadsheet of your savings, your pension, or your plans. Because the moment you start justifying how you spend your money, you start giving away your power, your independence, your ability to decide, to give freely when you want to, not when someone expects it. That is what protects your dignity. And dignity is non-negotiable. Think of your money as a shield, not from your family, but from the erosion of boundaries. You earned that shield. You built it through sacrifice and discipline. It's yours to carry into the years ahead, and you have every right to hold it close. Now, speaking of the past, let's talk about another thing we often feel tempted to share too much of: our mistakes. Every single one of us has a collection of regrets. Maybe it's a job we stayed in too long, a person we loved who didn't love us back, an investment gone wrong, a friend we trusted who let us down. And as we age, there's a part of us that wants to open up, to finally talk about those things. But here's the problem. Not everyone can handle your truth the way you can. What you see as a valuable life lesson, others may see as a weakness. You might think you're sharing wisdom, but what they hear is a reason to question your past decisions, your character, or even your judgment today. Let's say you tell your daughter that years ago you made a financial decision you regret. She might start second-guessing how you're managing your money now. Or you reveal a difficult chapter in your marriage. And suddenly your adult children look at your relationship through a new, colder lens. You survived those storms. You made it through. You carry the scars, but you also carry the strength. And that's what your family should see, the strength, not the scars. You're not obligated to hand them every painful page of your life story. Yes, you can offer guidance. You can say, save early, or don't rush into marriage, or take care of your health. But you don't need to relive every misstep just to prove a point. Turn your wounds into wisdom. Don't let them become weapons against yourself, or worse, tools for others to judge or pity you. Sometimes silence is not withholding. It's filtering. It's choosing to share the gold without dumping out the gravel. You've already lived through the pain. You don't need to pass it on like an inheritance. And that brings us to something else we talk about a lot as we get older: our health. Now, I want to say something that might be a little hard to hear, but stay with me. You don't need to tell your family every single thing that hurts. Yes, I know it's scary when something changes in your body, when your back aches a little more than usual, when the doctor sends you for more tests, when the energy you used to take for granted now comes in waves. But here's what happens when you constantly talk about your health problems with your family. They either start to worry too much, or they start to pull away. One group begins to pity you, to treat you like someone who's broken, who needs constant watching over. The other group might feel overwhelmed and helpless and distance themselves, not because they don't love you, but because they don't know how to handle it. Neither response brings you closer to the respect, connection, or support you truly want. Now, I'm not saying to hide important health issues. If you need help, if a condition requires care or attention, of course your loved ones should know. But there's a difference between updating them and overwhelming them. Save the day-to-day worries for your doctor. Keep the late-night Googling and what-if thoughts between you and a medical professional. Not because your family doesn't care, but because your peace matters more than their opinions or emotional reactions. Instead of sharing fears, share hope. Tell them what you can still do. Celebrate the little victories. Be the person in their lives who faces difficulty with courage and a sense of humor. Not someone they quietly fear might be fading away. You want your family to remember you not for your diagnosis, but for your resilience. Not for what you lost, but for the light you still carry. Because the truth is, your mindset is just as important as your medicine. And when you choose to focus on strength over symptoms, you send a powerful message. I may be aging, but I'm not done yet. Now, I want you to think about the energy you protect when you choose what not to say. The peace that grows in the spaces where drama and fear used to live. That peace. It's not a luxury. It's your reward. It's your right. You know, there's a kind of strength in restraint. It takes wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay quiet. And as we move through the later chapters of life, that wisdom becomes our greatest ally. Because not every truth needs to be spoken to bring peace. In fact, sometimes speaking the truth, especially when it comes to family, can do more harm than good. Let me ask you something. Have you ever bit your tongue at a family gathering? Maybe you heard someone say something that rubbed you the wrong way. Maybe you remembered a moment from years ago when someone didn't show up, didn't help, or said something hurtful. And for a second, you thought about finally saying it, letting them know how you really feel. But then you stopped yourself. And that moment right there, that pause, that's wisdom. Because one of the hardest secrets to keep in old age is this: your true opinions about other family members. Now, I know that sounds strange. We're taught to value honesty. We're told that speaking our truth is a good thing. But when it comes to family, especially when you're the elder, there's a delicate balance between being honest and keeping the peace. You've lived long enough to see people for who they really are. You've watched their patterns, their choices, their attitudes. Maybe you've forgiven a lot. Maybe you've stayed quiet for the sake of unity. But there's always that moment when you wonder, should I just tell them the truth? Should I tell my daughter how much her husband disappointed me? Should I let my son know that I don't trust his choices? Should I finally say what I think about that cousin who always takes but never gives? And while those thoughts are valid, while your feelings are completely real, the truth is, once you say them out loud, you can't take them back. Family dynamics are fragile. You might think you're only talking to one person, sharing something just between us. But words travel. Opinions get twisted. Someone hears half a sentence and fills in the rest with assumptions. And before you know it, your home becomes a place of tension. Visits get shorter. Calls become fewer. Eyes avoid yours at the dinner table. Is that the legacy you want to leave? You don't need to lie. You don't need to pretend everything is perfect. But you can choose what to say and when not to say it. Because at this point in life, you're not here to fix everyone. You're not here to referee old arguments or judge who's worthy of your approval. You're here to enjoy the time you have left. You're here to protect your peace. Let them show their true colors. People always do. And when they do, you don't need to comment. You don't need to correct. You simply need to observe, smile, and carry on. You see, when you speak with silence, you carry power. You remind people that not everything needs your stamp of approval, that you've reached a place where peace matters more than being right. And here's the beautiful thing. When you stay quiet about your judgments, you give others the space to grow. You give them the dignity of their own journey. You may not like every decision they make, but your silence says, I trust you to figure it out. That's a gift far more powerful than any piece of advice. Now, there's one more secret I want to talk about. It's one that causes more family drama than anything else. One that turns love into resentment and togetherness into tension. And that is your plans for inheritance. Oh, I can already hear the sighs. This topic, money, property, the will, it's like walking on eggshells, isn't it? But here's what I want you to understand. Your assets, your belongings, your home, your money, they're not just material things. They're symbols. They're emotional. And when you talk about them too early, when you tell your children or grandchildren, this is what you're getting. Even with the best intentions, you set off a chain reaction that can change everything. Let's say you tell your eldest daughter that she's going to inherit the house. She smiles and says thank you. But later, your younger son hears about it. Maybe not even from you, but through a cousin or during a holiday meal. And suddenly, there's a silent shift. He's hurt. He feels left out. He starts questioning everything. Does mom love her more? Why didn't she talk to me? Or maybe one child starts treating you extra sweet, not out of love, but because now they know what's coming. Maybe another starts pulling away, thinking, what's the point? They've already made their decision. And what happens to your final years? Instead of being filled with family closeness, with laughter and shared stories, they become clouded with suspicion, jealousy, and manipulation. You didn't mean for that to happen. You thought you were being transparent, fair, loving. But even the gentlest decisions can become heavy burdens when spoken too soon. That's why I always tell people, handle your will privately with a lawyer you trust. Make your choices with a clear head based on your values and your sense of fairness. Write it down. Sign it. Seal it. And then live your life. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you divide what you've earned. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. It's your right to give what you want, how you want, without being guilted, pressured, or judged. If someone truly loves you, they'll honor your choices. If they don't, well, that tells you everything you need to know. Your final gift to your family isn't the money or the property. It's your example. It's the way you handled your life with strength, grace, and clarity. That's what they'll remember. Not the dollars, not the house, but the way you carried yourself with dignity. And here's the thing, peace in old age isn't something that happens on its own. It's something you build day by day with the choices you make. You protect it by being careful with your words, cautious with your trust, and intentional with your love. You protect it by knowing that just because something is true doesn't mean it needs to be said. And most of all, you protect it by understanding that silence isn't weakness. Silence is wisdom. It's power. It's freedom. You know, sometimes the most powerful message you can send your family isn't something you say. It's how you carry yourself. When you sit at peace in your own presence, when you choose grace over gossip, when you quietly remove yourself from drama without needing to explain why, people notice. They might not say it, but they feel it. And over time, that quiet example becomes louder than any speech you could give. We've talked about money. We've talked about mistakes, health, opinions, and inheritance. But underneath all of these, there's a common thread. The desire to live the later years of life with dignity. Not by accident, not by luck, but by choice. Because the truth is, aging doesn't take away your power. It clarifies it. You no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. You've loved, you've lost, you've sacrificed, you've built. You've seen people come and go. You've learned who's worth your energy and who isn't. And at this point, you don't owe explanations. What you owe, more than anything, is protection of your own peace. Now, let's take a step back and breathe. If you've ever felt like you're being pulled in too many directions, if you've ever felt like everyone wants a piece of you, your advice, your time, your money, your stories, your approval, just know you're not alone. So many older adults, especially those over 60 or 65, carry the weight of family expectations without ever being asked what they need. But here's a gentle reminder. It's okay to draw a line. It's okay to say no. It's okay to not answer every call, not reply to every message immediately, not attend every event just to keep the peace for others. Because sometimes, keeping the peace on the outside costs you peace on the inside. And that's not a price you should keep paying. Let me tell you a little story. A woman once told me, when I turned 70, I stopped explaining myself. I started drinking my coffee slowly, taking long walks, and saying no thank you, with a smile. She wasn't bitter. She wasn't angry. She was simply free. She learned that boundaries weren't about building walls, they were about protecting the garden of her soul. And isn't that what we're all trying to do? Create space to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to reflect, to live on our terms without always negotiating our time and truth. You've spent your whole life giving. Now it's time to guard. Guard your time. Guard your energy. Guard your values. Guard your secrets. Not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of love for yourself. Because let me tell you something, there is no shame in privacy. In fact, privacy is one of the last luxuries we can truly control in this noisy world. When you don't tell everyone everything, you leave room for yourself to change your mind. You protect your flexibility, your autonomy, your peace. You're not being distant. You're being deliberate. And when the people in your life see that, when they see you making intentional choices about what you share and what you don't, they may not always understand it at first, but in time, they'll respect it. They'll see that silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you have the strength to hold your truth without needing to broadcast it. And look, I know some people might say, but if I don't share with my family, aren't I pushing them away? Shouldn't they know everything? Here's the thing. Love and honesty are not the same as overexposure. You can be close to your family and still keep sacred space for yourself. You can show up for them without handing over the keys to every locked drawer in your heart. Your family doesn't need to know every detail of your finances to know you love them. They don't need to know your deepest regrets to learn from your strength. They don't need to hear every ache and pain to understand that you're human. They don't need to know every opinion you have about their choices to feel supported. And they certainly don't need to know the contents of your will in advance to respect your legacy. They just need to know that you lived with courage, that you made decisions from a place of wisdom, not pressure, that your silence wasn't distance, it was intention. And if you do that, if you carry yourself with quiet confidence, with calm boundaries and clear love, you'll leave behind something far more valuable than money or possessions. You'll leave behind peace. You'll leave behind the memory of someone who didn't waste their final years chasing approval or managing chaos. Someone who sat with grace. Someone who loved deeply but wisely. Someone who taught by example that the strongest voices are sometimes the softest ones. So if you're watching this and you've been feeling torn between honesty and harmony, between closeness and independence, I want you to know this. You are not selfish for keeping some things to yourself. You are not wrong for drawing lines to protect your peace. You are not cold for refusing to let your past become public property. You are not weak for choosing calm over conflict. You are wise. You are seasoned. You are powerful. And you have nothing left to prove. This next chapter of your life, whether you're 65, 70, or 85, it belongs to you. Don't hand the pen to anyone else. Write it in your voice, on your terms. Protect your dignity like it's gold, because it is. And remember, your silence is not the absence of love. It's the presence of maturity. It's the echo of a life well lived. It's the quiet strength of someone who's finally learned that you don't need to say everything to mean everything. If this message spoke to you, if it made you pause or smile or feel seen, go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what wisdom you've learned in your journey and how you're choosing to protect your peace. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps others like you find this content. Don't forget to subscribe to Strong Elderly Life, where we're building a community of strength, simplicity, and serenity in our golden years. Because here's the truth. Life after 60 can be the most powerful chapter yet, if you live it with purpose. Here's to fewer explanations, fewer arguments, and more peace. Here's to dignity, to privacy, to wisdom. Here's to you, living your best life at any age.